Hey, what's up, everybody? Brandon here at Midnight Customs. So, in this series, we're going to show you how to weld, set up your welder. This is Fluxcore welding. This is the most common type you're going to find at your hardware store. So, you can get all the other things. But this video series is specific to Fluxcore welding, and it's catered towards beginners. So let's get right into it. We're going to go over some stuff here, and we're going to go over it with this welder here. This is a 145 amp Fluxcore welder. This is the Art Captain MiG 145 Pro. Really good little machine, and it is a 110 plug. So you don't need any fancy wiring. You don't need 220. This is the same plug that every home in the country is wired for basic power. So 110 on a 20 amp breaker. So we're going to go over how to set up the welder. And what we're going to do is start with your ground. So on the Fluxcore welder, this is actually positive, and your torch is negative. Now, on this welder in particular, you have your positive lug right here, and then you have your negative lug right here, which the lead is already screwed into. And on this welder, and I'm sure many others like it that are strictly Fluxcore, the wire feed is set up to run out of the negative lug. Now what we're going to do, so basically hooking this up, what I'm saying is very easy. You'll see there's a hole in your negative lug that the wire is going to come out. You just make sure that you have your torch screwed into the machine, and that way it feeds through and out the tip. So your little Fluxcore welders, they're all going to look like this inside, whether it's horizontal or vertical. So this one's a side load, but if you were to go and get a different brand, a Harbor Freight, whatever, basically you're going to be looking at it from this view, because the spool is going to load up here. The door will pop open. Anyway, we're using Art Captain. They're sponsoring the video. So you've got your spool of wire, and you've got your drive rollers. Now, when you are, get you in here, to take this off, you have your spring and your wing nut that cinches it down. Some of these have these little locking plates, and they are keyed to go on this lug a certain way. So this would just go on, pop on, and off. Now, what you want to be careful of is you don't want to let this come unraveled. It'll be a big mess. You could spend all day trying to roll it back up, but at that point, you might as well just start over. At least that's what I would do. Depends on whatever your budget is, but you can get these from various manufacturers. This is a really good welding wire, I should say. This is 030 E71T-GS, or 8 millimeter. And so what you'll do is you'll hold on, put a finger on the spool to keep it from unraveling, and then you'll try and feed this into here, and your drive rollers are down in here. Now, Fluxcore uses a knurled roller, And what that means is there's little teeth inside there that kind of grip onto it, because Fluxcore is a hollow wire and your flux is in the center of that wire. Your drive rollers down here, make sure you use the right size, whether you're 8 millimeter or 0.6 millimeter, whatever. This only came with one roller and has two different sizes, for one for 030 and one for 035. So while you're holding on to this, keeping it from unraveling on you, you take your other hand and you feed it through this opening, through this on top of the roller here. And then there's another opening right there, and you want to feed it through, which goes out to your torch. And then you would just close this and flip your lever up, and then you would adjust your tension. Now you don't want to have too much tension on it. Put this back on before I lose it. Anyway, like I was saying, you don't want to have too much tension on it. What you want is, when you are feeding the wire through, one, you're going to want it to come out. And the best way to do this is take this little diffuser off. Clearly I've been using this. This black stuff on here is actually nozzle gel. So what you'll want to do is take this, and actually, let me find a wrench real quick. Where is that thing? There it is. All right, get you a set of MIG pliers. These are super handy. This little opening up here goes around this, and you can take your tip loose. I guess if I use my right hand, since I'm right-handed, it'd probably help. So when you're feeding your wire, just have your tip off. Run your wire out through this part of the torch, and then you take your tip, put it back over until it pops out like so. Screw it back on. And you don't have to be super tight, but you do want it to be just a little bit snug. So there's that. And here's your diffuser. This is actually a gas diffuser. There's no gas running through this machine, so you don't technically need the gas diffuser itself. But what this is this protects this. This is basically an electrode. So if you were welding in a corner or whatever and you touched, you could fry your machine. So it's important to have one of these. You can get them in plastic. You can even put duct tape on it. Not duct tape, electrical tape around this. I wouldn't recommend that though. I would recommend just getting one of the plastic ones if you don't have one of these, or just get one of these. So remember folks, safety first, or depending on what you do for a living, safety third. So what we're going to do is we're going to twist this in. This is your trigger control. It just goes into this port right there. And there is a little tiny keyway on it, so it only goes in one way. And then you just screw that on there. Now, different welders will come with different connectors depending on what the manufacturer goes with. This is called a DIN connector or a Euro style connector, but it's got a little barb on the lug. I don't know if you can see that. I'll get you in there. So that also has a keyway on here. You just push it in and you just give it a quarter turn and it's locked in. Before you get started welding for the first time, you're going to want a couple of obvious things. One, you're going to want to get you a welding lid. You can get ones that are just dark all the time. I'm sure they have a purpose. I don't use them. I use an auto darkening one that has multiple settings on it. So this one goes up to it's a DIN 9-13. So 13 would be the darkest setting. And then on this side, you've got its sensitivity. You can do low or high, and you can adjust both of these depending on your needs. I will tell you that Fluxcore welding, the arc is a super bright white. It's far brighter than MIG welding, where you're running solid core with gas. So you'll want to have it a little darker, but again, whatever suits your fancy. If it's comfortable for you, that's what you like, that's totally fine. You can get these pretty much anywhere. Harbor Freight. This one is an Art Captain. So very inexpensive, and it's a very good one. This is actually my first one and my only one. And it works good. Nice thing is a lot of these have replaceable lenses. So you can replace the clear part when they get all scuffed up or pitted, or you get arc splatter or what have you on there. Also, same thing on the inside. See if I can get this out of the way. So that lens in there is also replaceable. And also this one on the inside is set up to where you can put a cheater lens, but it's a magnifying glass, but it just clips right in there. And if you have trouble seeing your welds, or you can get you a set of readers, cheap readers from, you know, Walmart, whatever. I was going to say Kmart, but they're long gone, and I honestly don't know how many of you actually remember Kmart or have ever heard of it. So get you a good helmet. You don't got to spend a fortune on it. Just get you something good that works. This one also has a grind mode, so I can click this little tab right here, and this will not turn dark when it sees the sparks from the grinder. So, but if you get one like that, remember, and I know this from firsthand experience of not remembering, make sure you double check that it's on weld, because you'll be seeing sunspots and stars, and it's crap. Don't ruin your vision. It's not worth it. So that gets you a good pair of welding gloves. So these are like $16, $17. You can get them on Amazon or through Art Captain. You can get welding gloves at any welding supply or farm and ranch store, whatever you want. I like to run the thicker gloves. But if you're going to do TIG welding down the road, they have different sets of gloves for that. But we're not going to get into TIG because I don't do TIG. Not yet, anyway. So you got your personal gear, protective gear. Also wear sleeves. This is not fire retardant. but get you something heavy denim if that's what you got. Basically, just protect your skins, one, from arc burn, because it's super bright. It can burn your skin, you know, like a really bad sunburn. Two, splatter. Those little BBs are hot and they burn. Ask me how I know. So you got those things, all right. You got your welder, you got your welding hood, you got your gloves, you got your sleeves. Now, the next bit, different types of Fluxcore wire, and by different types, I mean different manufacturers or brands, weld differently. Some smoke more, some smoke less. Some have a lot of spatter, some have very little spatter. But also, spatter also depends on what your settings are when you're welding and what you're welding on. That's something you'll have to decide. Everything I'm using is from Art Captain. So I will leave a link to all the pieces of equipment that I'm using in the description down below if you want to check that out. So there's that. Now the next bit is anti-spatter spray. You'll want to get you a can of this, especially if you're Fluxcore welding. And what it does is it keeps those little welding BBs from sticking to your tabletop or your workpiece. That way you don't have to grind it. So if you got you a little thin sheet metal table, you really don't want to grind on it. Or sorry, not sheet metal, but if you got a thin steel plate table, you know, under a 1/4 inch, then you don't really want to be grinding. Actually, 1/4 inch, you don't really want to grind on either, because eventually you'll erode the thickness there. You know what I mean? So this just makes cleanup a breeze. You can literally take a scraper, like a paint scraper, and just scrape it right off. And it just goes right away. You don't have to grind nothing. The other thing you want to get, this fell and the lid broke, so that's why it's got a bag on it, is you want to get you a jar of nozzle gel. Crap. What? Oh, there it is. I thought I lost my rubber band, folks. Turns out it's right there. So, obviously we use this, but I don't really know what it's made out of. I'm sure it's some sort of paraffin wax. It's a petroleum base. Basically Vaseline for your welder. Anyway, you get you some of this, and this also keeps that clean from having any kind of buildup, spatter buildup, slag buildup, what have you. So what you do is you just take it and you just dip her right in there. And you might get a little booger like that. This is going to melt, but it's not going to catch on fire. So, and that will keep this from having a crusty buildup. The other thing too is on these MIG pliers, they're square. And what you would use these for, I mean, not, you can grab stuff and all that, but what you do is you pop your diffuser off if you got one, stick one end in there, and you just keep going around in a circle, and it actually scrapes out all the crusties. Yeah, you know, you don't want to have crusties. No skids, no crusties. Yeah. So we got a piece of 2x2 3/16 angle that I have ground. So this is mill scale. it's like a coating they put on at the mill when this is hot formed. So you want to weld clean steel. So I've gone ahead and already cleaned off this. This is bare metal. The cleaner it is, the better your weld's going to be. You have less chance of porosity, which is contamination in the weld and can cause your weld to fail if you're doing something structural or under stress. So this is a piece of scrap. Well, there's no such thing as scrap. This is a cutoff. Whatever little pieces you got left over, save them. It's kind of like, you know, that dad that has held on to that one 2x4 for 30 years, and one day he finds the perfect use for it. That's what this is. This is that 30-year-old 2x4. I found the perfect use for it. And that use is to show you folks different settings on the welder. So we're going to show you too cold, and we're going to show you too hot. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to walk it down or walk it up. So one thing I will tell you though is definitely get you some scrap metal and practice. Practice, practice, practice. That way you can be able to dial in your welder setting for the project that you want to do. So you don't have to be perfect. I am by no means perfect. But I'd say I will pretty dang good. Okay. Now, get that out of the way. Turn the power on this thing. And we are at 110 amps. I'm going to turn it down. How does this go? So this one goes down to 40 amps. Way too cold, but we'll go ahead and show it. Screw it, you know? We'll get you down in here. By the way, anti-spatter spray. Get the table real good, yeah. We're just going to ground to our table. You want to make sure you got a good ground. Okay, 3/16 steel, 030 wire at 40 amps. We'll show you what it looks like. And we'll show you a problem too. I didn't have my stick out far enough. So what happens is it burns back. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay, we got her to feed. Okay, here we go. My apologies, the microphone died. So anyway, right here we're working on the 40 amp setting, and as you can see, it's super cold. Nothing laid down. It just looks like a bunch of pebbles there. Way too cold. I'm not going to cut them off. Now, as we move over, we're going to go up to 80 amps, and as you can see, it looks quite a bit better. We got a full stringer. Both of those are full stringers. But if you look, you know, right up in there, it's still a little cold. You got that little ball of goo up there, and still a little cold for what we got going on. But also, you can notice the little BB spatter and all that sort of stuff. Notice the colder it is, the less there is, the hotter it is. Now, the next one over is 90 amps, and it looks quite a bit better. It is laying down better. It's a much fuller weld, and it's overall much better. Now, we're going to go over to the 100 amp one. And in this video, I'm showing you the difference between the temperatures and how much spatter there is and isn't at this point. And keep in mind, the voice didn't record, the sound didn't record. So, we're at the 100 amp mark right now, and the welds look much better. The first 100 amp one, we tripped the breaker because I didn't have the welder plugged into an actual wall socket. It was in a power strip, and it tripped the power strip breaker. So we get over to the second one, and it's a much nicer weld, much cleaner, looks much better. But still, for this thickness, it's probably really a little bit cold. And again, I'm notating the amount of spatter. Now, this is the second two passes on 100 amps, and they definitely look a lot better. I probably moved too fast on those, but that's all right. This is just a demonstration. This is what it's going to be like when you're very first starting out. And it might be like this for a little while until you get dialed in and get your settings figured out. And then we are going to end up at the far end of this at 145 amps, where the machine is totally maxed out. It's a 145 amp welder, and we really put the beams to her on this last one. And it's a little hard to see, but at the very top of it'd be the far right side of your screen, it actually started undercutting and melting the steel around it and the weld sinking in. So, but they are also much better looking welds. Now, the first of the two welds at the 145 amp, I drug it down. The saying is, if there's slag, you drag. The second one, you can see on the edges and at the very top, where it started to melt the parent metal. I pushed that uphill, so it's got a more prominent crown, and it's more of a caterpillar look than the other one, much smoother. Now, the thing with Fluxcore is, it doesn't really produce a slag. The flux on the inside boils out of the weld, and so you end up with that powdery dust all over the place, as you can kind of see. And you just take a wire brush and brush that off. Now, in this section here, again, the sound guide. We're just talking about going over the basics here. You don't have to spend a whole buttload of money. You have your choice, and there's an abundance of products out there you can use. Art Captain sponsored this video. Thank you, Art Captain, for sending us this equipment. And you're looking roughly, depending on what area you live in, you're looking at roughly $350 to $500 to get yourself set up. That's if you don't already have any equipment whatsoever. Not just the machine, but a welding hood, gloves, whatever. So, with that being said, you don't have to blow the budget on any of this stuff. You can absolutely do this on a budget. You don't need thousands of dollars in equipment. You don't need to go out and buy a $2,000 welder. If you're not running production or you're not running a business with it, you absolutely don't need to spend that kind of money. Just find out, you know what your budget is. So stick with your budget, and you can definitely get in. This machine is fully capable, for what it costs, which it's under $200 for the welder itself. You can do a lot with this little 145. It is very capable. Up to, I think, 1/4 inch. I have to look it up again, but very capable machine. And I'm going to leave the links to the products that I used in the description. I don't make any money off of it. It's just to help you navigate, to give you some options, so you can just click on it instead of having go back and forth and be like, what did he use? What did he use? You can just click on it to take you to it, and you can make your own informed decision. So, if you're just starting out and you're not sure, and you don't want to spend a bunch of money, the Art Captain MiG 145 Pro is very budget friendly. They have many other options as well, depending on what you want to do. Now, this machine is not only a Fluxcore welder. It'll actually do lift TIG and DC stick welding if you buy the attachments or the torches for it. So, but we're just doing this series on MIG welding, Fluxcore welding, because that's what 99.999% of us starting out are going to end up with, because it is super affordable and budget friendly. So with that being said, just do your homework on what you want, and get out there and get after it. This whole video series that we're putting out is designed and catered towards the everyday person that may need a nudge, or they've just been wanting to do it, but they don't know, it's too expensive, what have you. I told myself for 20 years I want to learn how to weld and fabricate, and a year ago I finally pulled the trigger and bought myself a welder and started teaching myself. I'm self-taught. I ask questions, I watch videos, but I didn't go to school. All right, I don't work in a fabrication shop. So
we got a few different amperages on here.
That. Now the other thing,
and we'll show you what. Set that back to 90.
You gotta have fun.
I'll show you what they look like. I'm going to write the numbers as I did right here for the different amps for each pass that I did.
And
we'll show you what it looks like.
No.
And we're going to wire brush it, clean it up, and you can see for yourselves.
The whole point of this is to have fun. And then you can fix your gate. You can teach yourself how to weld sheet metal. And we're going to show you some stuff with different things with sheet metal and all that in this series. And because you can absolutely weld thin sheet metal with Fluxcore. So
If you have any constructive criticism, any tips, tricks, advice, or something that you would like to see, please drop it down in the comments below. And I do read all the comments, and so we're here to make it to help you. Thank you for watching.
All right, folks. So this is what we got. I've gone ahead and wire brushed it. So we'll show you what we're working with here. We'll start with coldest to hottest. So